Tyres light up as the cars move off. Luca Filippi and Sandy Negrão for Supernova, and Minardi PK, another name to conjure with this season. Andreas Zuber of iSport in third place, but that's bad news. That looks like Jason Tahinci, and he's just was coming off his best qualifying performance so far, 20th place. But Gareth, no question what's gone wrong there, and the crew are going to have to run on and get the car started. He's not the only one either.
Three.
There's that Michel Amamula, and just in front of him, Pastor Maldonado on the left, the Venezuelan driver who finished in the top 3 in the World Series by Renault last year.
We've seen this time and again, haven't we? In the early races of a season, often we see the drivers have trouble pulling off for standing start. So just rookie drivers. Tahinci's got no excuse. He's got a season under his belt. The other two are rookie drivers.
Well, Tahinci stalled in the first race start of 2006 as well, so he's keeping some kind of rhythm alive that he probably doesn't want to. But still leading us around, Luca Filippi. Now this is very interesting. Luca Filippi last year with the brand new championship to learn, and with a new team to deal with as well, didn't really find his feet perhaps as he might have done. It'd be interesting to see how he, and Sandy Negrão as well. Negrão, when he started at the front of the race, has tended to go backwards, and where he started down in the midfield has come up pretty well. So it'd be interesting to see how they go. Andreas Zuber behind them, very experienced, and with iSport really the strong team at the end of last year, Gareth. He's got to be a very strong contender for a race win here.
Yeah, they got two very good drivers. Block as well, his teammate, is very, very quick. In fact, he's probably more of a favourite than he is, than Zuber is. You know, he had a great half season. Once he left BCN and joined iSport about the third of the way through last year, he flew and actually ran the championship winners very close in the end.
So cars, there should be 26 of them, and we seem to have at least 25 of them running at the moment. Christian Bakker of the Dane there, stepped up from British Formula 3. With Dave Price, he and Andy Suchek, the Spanish driver, who's the 2005 Spanish Formula 3 champion, having a pretty tough time. They're on the back row of the grid, very little running, and that's a bit of a shame, because the Price and Carlin Motorsport crews have got together, and even so, don't seem to have shaken off their bad luck either.
Two things to think about here, Martin, for the guys offline. First of all, they've only had half a lap to warm the tyres up. Don't forget, GP2 doesn't use tyre warmers. Second of all, offline, it's very dirty here. You're out in the middle of the desert, so much sand blown on the circuit. Offline, it's really dirty. So all the cars on the right of the screen as we look there are going to really struggle to get away.
Two Brazilians, particularly Sandy Negrão and Lucas de Grassi, second and fourth. Yellow flags waving, and that means somebody else has lost their engine as well. You can see him flapping away there. It's Yamamoto. Well, Yamamoto, it looked as though he was waving his arms, and the yellow flags, yes. And a number of drivers breaking formation. Gareth, what's that all about? Just to try and stop the temperatures getting up too high?
You're probably just switching off. You're right, yeah, they're trying to cool the engines down, but just switch off and sit tight.
Well, that's a shame for Kohei Hirati, Trident Motorsport. This is one of the racing engineers. That's a Campos driver, isn't it? Is that Vitaly?
Pantano.
Wasn't Petro, that was Pantano. All his experience.
I think probably he just switched off, to be honest with you. His experience said just sit tight, although the thing now is he's going to have a lot more fuel in his tank than the others.
Well, he's not, because he's going to have to get back to the grid at some stage, so...
yeah, I mean, I don't know whether they'll get him rolling. Basically, what they'll do is they'll come back to the start and start again, I think.
Now, I think a gap's opening in the pit wall, and I think these guys are going to be pushed out of the way, because the one thing that a support race cannot do is overstay its allotted time. Pantano never even moves. There's not even a jerk. He didn't even engage gear there, did he? It didn't stall or anything. In gear, he didn't move. So those guys will be starting if their cars are refired from the pit lane. So, right, you see what's going on. Well, I just cross about half a dozen names off there. They will all be wheeled away.
Yep.
Just don't get a second chance to mess up a Formula 1 weekend. And already in the pit there, it's getting...
I think Pantano's body language seems to indicate, why am I being punished for just not pulling away? I mean, the standard thing is, if the start's aborted, you just sit tight, you don't drive away. He did the right thing, he's been punished for it.
Do you know, I don't think he's saying something's wrong. Something's wrong inside the car. Well, you saw in front of him.
I think he was doing the old Italian with the two hands. You know, exactly. It is to say, what's going on? It's not my fault.
Hirate certainly not in it. Supernova driver Mike Conway is, though, the reigning British Formula 3 champion. And this is going to be an interesting step up for him. 10th in his first qualifying session, so that's not bad. His teammate on pole with a year more experience. So Supernova getting themselves very definitely in the ballpark. And as Gareth said earlier, certainly well within a second of the pole position.
Interestingly, Sean, our stat man, seems to think Pantano tagged the wall as he was pushed through the hole in the wall.
Ah, maybe that's why he's arguing about
that's why he's not happy, yeah.
Being pushed into the wall by the marshal. That's now page 743 of the driver's excuse book, has a new addition to it. So, very interesting. Well, they are going all the way around now for this formation lap. So having to get themselves back into order, and you saw the Arden International colours, the Red Bull colours of Bruno Senna. Now that is certainly a driver that a lot of people are going to pay a lot of attention to. Senna has not got a big karting background. He's had 3 years of motor racing, all of them in single-seaters, the last 2 in Formula 3 in Great Britain, where he ran Mike Conway very strongly at the beginning of the season for the title, ended up in 3rd position in the end-of-season points. But incredible that he's got no real racing background, and he comes into this feeder series for Formula 1 with obviously a huge name sort of hovering in the background, but he's just got to produce the goods himself and concentrate on what he's doing himself.
No, I agree. He's done a great job for somebody who is that inexperienced, with no karting background, no particular pedigree in the lower formula, just 3 years, bang straight into GP2, and he's qualified 5th. That's a great job, and a front runner in British F3 last year too. Really impressive.
Just a couple of times last year, in fact both surprisingly at Silverstone, his race brain didn't quite seem to work quite as well as he went for gaps that
I think that's an experience, isn't it? Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
And that's the sort of thing that's going to hold him up. It just almost beggars belief that somebody with no experience at all can within a year be able to deal with the sort of data that a modern single-seater generates. But all of that is part of it as well, and there again is Pantano.
Yeah, he's ready to go. Filippi, the assembly lap was very slow. The last 2 or 3 turns especially, he really slowed the pack down. So there'll be a few overheating engines. It's a warm day, kind of 30 degrees plus, very humid.
Well, so we have got a few gaps on the grid, haven't we? Hirati there, not on 6th position, is our main missing man. And that gives Borja Garcia from 8th a little bit of a clear run towards the front of the field as they get ready for the second time. So, looking for 5 red lights, ready to get the 2007 GP2 Series underway. It'll be a lap shorter, 33 laps the race distance. Away they go, very slow. Luca Filippi from pole, very slow. Sandy Negrão from 2nd place, yellow flags waving all over the place. And it's Andreas Zuber with the red wings on his blue nose who looks to take 3rd. No, his teammate comes way around the outside. That's Timo Glock, and that's Lewis Hamilton moving to 2nd place as he pushes off Alexandre Negrão. Sandy Negrão comes back in the middle of the pack, but Gareth, they all survive. Blinding start from iSport driver Timo Glock from 7th on the clean side of the grid.
A great start, but uncompromising, wasn't it? Ran the outside of his teammate and then just out the way, Negrão coming through.
I think that wasn't Tahinchi bounced up in the air. That was the other FMS car. That's Antonio Pizzonia, who's making a return to the Formula 1 paddocks. Ex-Jaguar driver, of course. And he's hoping to unblot his copybook. 3 wide going through there, and they just about all get through. No, they didn't. The Durango driver in the middle just survived. And you have to excuse us for the opening lap or 2 if it takes a moment to get used to these new liveries. Andy Suchek with Christian Bakkerud right in front of him. The 2 dark blue and white DPR cars at the tail of the field. But our race leader is looking to try and check out early here, build a break while it's all going on behind him. There are the DPR drivers. Oh, and running out wide was Bakkerud. The Dane made it. Big mistake there. And the driver from Barcelona, Andy Suchek, went by him. Well, that's another FMS moment there. And again,
Negrão, he's back down to 8th spot after tangling with Glock.
Race leader Luca Filippi, Timo Glock, Andreas Zuber, the teammates side by side, both very experienced. Bruno Senna in 4th, ahead of Lucas Di Grassi, another Brazilian, the man who preceded him through the British Formula 3 Championship and followed Nelson Piquet Jr. And Luca Filippi has never led a single lap. He's never, in fact, spent a single lap in the top 3 of a GP2 race, so he is rewriting his own history here. Thanks to Sean, the statman, for that. It's absolute carnage here. Roldan Rodriguez, the 2nd Minardi PK driver. Of course, for the first time, a PK team does not have a PK in it. Here's Di Grassi, 5th place. Right in front of him, Bruno Senna. And Di Grassi, this is the year he has to prove himself. Renault development driver, but he's really got to produce the goods this year.
He does. I mean, he's in the car that's won the championship the last 2 years. A lot of pressure. Hamilton, and before that, Rosberg were the two ART drivers.
And Timo Glock and Andreas Zuber second and third, but Luca Filippi is really leaving them stone cold. Filippi from pole didn't get away too well, but look from row 3, Zuber goes right across to the left-hand side, I beg your pardon, Glock, and then cuts back to the outside. He's putting himself right in the danger spot. If anything happens inside him, he's off. But he's lucky. It all happens right behind, doesn't it?
He missed the contact. Just nerfed Negro out the way.
Yes, that was in the second element. Here we go. On board from third on the grid. Oh, that was close down the inside. Zuber nearly got a rub there. And that was De Grassi trying to come through. See, one iSport car chooses the inside line. He gets blocked, you're right.
You see the contact? Oh, I'm not going to show it.
I didn't show it there. Oh, and that's a mistake.
It's Glock running wide.
Little wide. Yeah, somebody's left oil down there. There's some quick dry on the track. They're white dust to try and pick up the fluids. Could be oil, could be water, something. But it didn't slow Filippi. He's still easing away. Timo Glock, well, despite that mistake, fastest lap of the race so far on lap 2. So Filippi, Glock, Zuber, Senna, De Grassi, Zaug. And this is Antonio Pizzonia. Don't forget, we saw him bounced up in the air earlier on.
Going past Vera, I think, was he?
Yep. Javier Villa, front runner in the Spanish Formula 3 Championship last year, and still a teenager. Alfonso Dolion, it's a baptism of fire. Oh, great onboard camera shot from Andreas Zuber. And this is where we see the bounce for second.
There you go, bang.
Well, and it looked much less dramatic from the inside, didn't it? It was just a wheel-to-wheel rub.
Exactly. And it's so critical on the first lap to try and get yourself ahead like that it's no prisoners, really. And
this is where Pizzonia goes flying, I think. Whoa, my word, he missed the camera stand on the inside, but couldn't
catch it.
Quite hold it. He had to really back off there. And problems for Roldan Rodriguez. That's where, that's gravel, in fact, pouring out of the side pods, as well as water and oil. So
nice mix.
Yeah, so I think perhaps the off through the gravel trap punctured something, and everything else just went kaput after that. Filippi continuing to increase his advantage. He's not the fastest man out there, Gareth, but only 2 in the 1:44s. That's Filippi and Glock.
Well, we saw Glock do a fastest lap, and straight away as he crossed the line to finish that lap, he made a complete mess of the first turn, so that undid everything he gained.
Again with Pizzonia, again coming back on track. Mike Conway out. Pantano didn't start, nor did Maldonado. So Kohei Hirate, one of the Toyota development drivers, he's one of their test drivers. He is the man next poised, I think, to get a full Toyota race seat. The Japanese firm obviously very keen to have a Japanese driver on board. He's right at the back of the field. And he'll be trying to work his way through.
Contact again.
Tahinchi and Bakarud. Suchek, it's giving him a jolly good yes. A wave out the cockpit, that is very much Andy Suchek, actually. And well, okay, so pit lane is open for the compulsory pit stops after the first 2 laps, and so Tahinchi, obviously with a problem, becomes our first pit stopper of the season, and Nicola Lapierre and Pizzonia have stopped, actually. So Vitaly Petrov, trouble for Campos Racing Team. So in fact, Pizzonia and Lapierre the first 2 to stop. And our race leader. Now then, Gareth, talk about tactics. We were sort of surmising before the race, heavy-duty temperatures, big fuel load. You probably won't want to run 1 set of tyres more than maybe a third distance, a half if it's not a good time to go in.
Yeah, Bridgestone have bought the hard compound tyre this weekend. All cars will be on that, so it's the most obviously hard-wearing tyre. But it needs it here, as you say, a lot of fuel load, very high temperature, a lot of slow corners, a lot of traction needed, so the rear tyres get a real hard time. So we always say it depends on your particular situation. So, for example, Filippi will be in no rush to get in for as long as his car is okay, no rush. If you're stuck in the pack with these guys, I think you'd be starting to think about it from about lap 10 onwards.
Well, the lap times fastest on lap 1 have dropped away a little bit. Timo Glock losing time all the way through to our leader, Luca Filippi. He's in the 46s, Felipe in the 45s at the moment. Adrian Zaug, young South African driver, in 6th place at the head of this queue, another Red Bull development driver. And of course every series has a few of them. Zaug, very impressive in World Series by Renault last year. Very much a learning year for him, but I think that will benefit him coming into these cars. Not wildly dissimilar, pretty sophisticated, a lot of aerodynamics to play with, and again very close racing. So the South African having a good run at the moment, closing enough to give us a chance. So confirmation there of the gaps at the front of the field. Timo Glock and Andreas Zuber for iSport. There they are. Glock with the red strip across the top of his helmet. Further back, Sandy Negrão and Karen Chandok, Brazilian and the Indian driver. There is Sandy Negrão and Chandok on the tail of that group. Chandok has come back almost from a Renault World Series style car, the Formula Renault V6 Euro Cup it was a couple of years ago, and he won the V6 Euro Cup in Asia last season. So another champion to contend with. The new look of the Red Bull cars of the Art Grand Prix team. Very different kind of look to them from the side on, and we're used to seeing them plain white with a little bit of red on. And the #1 car there is Michel Ammermuller. Under pressure from Sandy Negrão, the PK Sport car. And that is the battle for 8th place. Now there is quite, again, shooting off down into the pit lane. You don't have to give really any warning there, do you? You just almost miss your braking and shoot straight in. Now obviously if you do miss your braking, you do a lot more than shooting straight in, but it's quite dramatic.
Right down, because they fitted slick tyres for the first time last year. They felt that gave the car too much grip, so they took it away with adjusting the wing size. But it went too extreme, so the teams ran maximum rear wing everywhere. There was no room for changing it. So they've redesigned that, and now there's much more room for getting the right balance for your particular requirement.
Just watching Borja Garcia, the Durango driver. This is his 2nd season in the championship. And he's, again, another Spaniard looking to try and take some of the attention away from Fernando Alonso. And it's amazing, isn't it, the way that one really big performing driver can electrify a country to a particular sport. The Spaniards have always been huge bike fans, but Alonso has, in the way that Schumacher did in Germany, has just opened their eyes to Formula One, and suddenly it's a huge sport, and that makes life just a fraction easier for Spanish drivers trying to come up and follow in his footsteps.
I have to say, I don't see anybody remotely as good as he is. He's a bit special, Alonso.
Absolutely so. Soucek very much vaunted at the beginning of last year's World Series by Renault, but just perhaps not quite fully formed yet. He's very, very quick, but he can make the odd silly mistake, and you know, that's the season to have made it. This is not the time to be making silly errors where a Formula One driver or a team boss, or perhaps even more importantly a Formula One journalist, might be watching and pointing out your potential weak points.
Senna's doing a very, very good job. He's running with 4 guys around him who are all second-year drivers, and that's pretty impressive, you know, and particularly from a physical aspect. I mean, these cars are a lot more physical than he's used to. He's come from the British Formula 3 Championship, so that plus the temperature here, he's doing well to keep up.
Sandy Negrão looking around Michel Ammermuller. No, I beg your pardon, no it's not. It's Karen Chandok having a look. Can't quite find a way through though, the Indian driver. And in fact, Sean points out that it is Bruno Senna's 24th birthday today. So 2 years of British Formula 3 and 1 year of single-seater racing in South America rather. Yes, good move there. Chandok, I always thought in British Formula 3, a very, very entertaining racer. Very, very good at making overtaking manoeuvres happen and looking for different overtaking points. And just occasionally, as is the case in Formula 3, they didn't come off, but he's always been very entertaining. And it looks as though he hasn't forgotten how to overtake either, winning last year's V6 Renault Asian Championship. There's our race leader, Luca Filippi, plodding on quite happily. Now just about 3 seconds ahead of the closest opposition, Timo Glock. Lucas de Grassi in 5th place is still very close indeed to the tail of Bruno Senna. Adrian Zaug about a second and a half behind them in 6th, but it's all about the pace of Filippi, Gareth. Oh, and another smoking motor. Javier Villa Now that's
fairly terminal.
Both racing engineering cars. No, it's not. It wasn't Jimenez we saw go off earlier, was it? With lots of smoke. So yes, that is looking pretty terminal. Sergio Jimenez, his teammate, is down in 18th place.
Yeah, it was Rodriguez we saw go off, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, exactly. Roldan Rodriguez. Apparently we're supposed to work in some Roland Rat reference here.
Ooh,
dear, oh dear.
went.
Now, I always try to hold back on nominating which particular mechanical element is throwing out the oil, but that did particularly look like it was coming straight up the exhaust pipe. So I'm going to say it possibly wasn't a gearbox problem. Ammermuller just
running very wide.
Yeah, runs out of luck and or talent at that stage.
The oil that was just dropped.
And one of the slight problems here as well is if you do get a little bit off the Formula One rubber, is that it is pretty sandy still.
Oh,
despite the phenomenal wind rush that a Formula One car generates, the sand eddies up and then comes back down again. So it gets worse the further offline you go, as most tracks do, but here significantly so.
Yeah, it's very unusual to see a Renault engine failure here, isn't it, in GP2? You know, we've had 3 years, or 2, this is the third year of racing. I can't think of another failure we've seen.
That's about half a season's worth right there, I think. Yeah, it's very, very unusual. This 4-litre V8 has been not only powerful, responsive, drivers love it, they like the sound it makes, they like the way it propels the cars, but yes, you're right, it's been a paragon of reliability, so that's the end of that then. Christian Backerud going through. Is this Senna down the pit road? It's Adrian Zaug, in fact, Arden International driver, going back out. Yet to actually see a pit stop, but they do happen. Unfortunately, our timing screen is a little bit wayward as well. But Zaug came in from 6th position. We'll have to see exactly what sort of time that cost them. Of course, coming into the pit road makes the last 3 corners of the circuit much shorter because they cut off the back of the track there. They don't come in from the pit straight. So Filippi with Glock and Zuber, Senna right behind them, Lucas de Grassi, then that little break to Karen Chundok ahead of Sakon Yamamoto, another man who raced in Formula Renault V6 2 or 3 years ago. And then you can see this is Andy Suchek, the first of the DPR cars.
He's been chased down by Ho Pin Tung.
In fact, it's not. It's Christian Backerud, isn't it, with Ho Pin Tung? Yes, the Formula 3 Euro Series champion. So there's a big step up as well for him. Very different machinery, as you said earlier, Gareth, from a Formula 3 car. And we've seen quite a lot of Formula 3 drivers struggle to adapt, but actually he's not doing too bad a job here.
Not bad at all. It's his first time in the car.
Tactic. Have half the field pretty much having stopped, and the other half led by Luca Filippi not having stopped. And joining those that have stopped is the timing and scoring feed that we're using. And Gareth, some very bizarre weaving going on down the front straight, which suggests to me that somebody is not entirely sure all their wheels are on properly.
Yeah,
was Senna feeling some bizarre vibration there? Yeah, it was odd.
It could be as simple as that, you're right. It could be that the wheels just aren't balanced and it just feels odd, but not particularly reassuring as a driver when you just put new tyres on to feel like that.
Not wildly so, no. Now, I haven't seen any sign of a safety car or a full course yellow, so I mean, to be weaving like that at full speed, actually, I'm kind of surprised he got away with it, particularly on the front straight. It's hardly slow, you know, out of the pit lane maybe, but anyway, so... And I'm not quite sure what triggered the mass abandoning of the racetrack for the pit lane. It was just perhaps coincidence that everybody had come up with basically the same sort of 2/3 distance answer as the ideal place. Maybe not to get the best out of the first set, but maybe to get the best out of the second set of tyres. Or perhaps they just gave up waiting for something to change.
It's only 10 laps in, don't forget, so I mean, that's about the time that we say it's 22 to go. So it's about the time we said. I mean, the first third of the race is when the tyres get pounded the worst because you've got the largest fuel load on.
That's why I was saying it. The colour behind the numbers was yellow, which suggested that we should have done. So maybe that yellow flag incident, we didn't see quite where the yellow flags were, maybe where the oil went down, was the trigger for everybody to come in, because you're not going to go very fast if there is a local yellow on the circuit. So maybe that Senna has picked up a bit of debris on the run out of the pit road. It may be that he hasn't got a balance weight on correctly on the wheel. But at the moment, Luca Filippi is still our leader. The iSport car's still nose to tail. Senna's still in there, so it's Nicolas Lapierre. Now, Lapierre's looking a little bit more feisty than he was earlier on. certainly got himself a bit further up the order, started from 11th place. Here's a chance to see our race leader in the pits, Luca Filippi. You can see that somebody has done a good job laying lots of rubber on this sandy concrete. So that was very neat and tidy. And as you can see, dead straightforward job. They come out of the pit lane, across the drag strip and back out onto the circuit. This is a very multi-purpose motorsport facility, isn't it?
Interesting pit lane exit, isn't it? Yeah. I've never seen one quite like this.
Well, again, it is not just a Formula One circuit that gets used once a year. They are very determined that this will not become a white elephant, possibly a white camel, I suppose, would suggest, but really get as much use out of it as they possibly can. And if you're going to build a big long straight, you may as well have a quarter-mile drag strip in it as well and a mile of runoff area at the end. So that makes a lot of sense. Yet to stop then, Ho Pin Tung. And the Chinese driver will certainly be enjoying plenty of mileage here. Christian Bakkerud, our current race leader. And Bakkerud, of course, the last of the qualifiers. Ho Pin Tung qualified 24th. So these two guys have come, well, in Bakkerud's case, from the pit lane and from the back of the grid. Although, actually, Andy Soucek did start behind Tung, because he didn't stall. So Bakkerud won just one race in last year's British Formula 3 campaign and threatened to win a few more, but he just really had a dreadfully misfortunate start to the season. And from a driver who had an unlucky 2006, moving to DPR might not seem to be the best choice in terms of where the luck goes, but they can't just have perpetual bad luck. It's got to turn good for them at some stage. It's too good an engineering team. Tung goes into the pit lane, Bakkerud on his own, Vitaly Petrov in third, Luca Filippi, after his stop, shown in fourth place. So 12 laps completed by the leader. And that's who you're looking at now.
Yeah, we said before, it's very strange with DPR, isn't it? I mean, Dave Price is a very, very experienced guy, knows his stuff inside out. They've got a good engineering team, had a bit of a reshuffle over the winter. But both cars on the back row, it's very strange.
Yeah, most unlike them. They're too good a team to really do that badly. DPR 2 sprint race wins in 2005. With Olivier Plat, and other than that, they have been successfully avoiding any shade of silverware, which is perhaps not the way that they would like to see it. On board with Lucas de Grassi. Now, where do we think he is? Down somewhere in 11th place. Is that Lapierre in front of him? According to the scoring screens, it should be, and it does look as though it might well be, actually. And perhaps Adrian Zaug right in front of him. So this will be the battle for 9th. Now, thinking back to places like here last year, like Turkey particularly last year, let's see just how much the current aerodynamics allow you to close. They really do suck you along, don't they? Look at that. Part of it under braking.
Big slipstream, mind, isn't it? It's a kilometre straight, so you're going to get an enormous slipstream. Bit of moisture on the camera then as well, I noticed.
So you do really find the cars pulling up behind each other, which is great for drivers because it does give you a chance to really haul in a car in front and get yourself into position. But you saw then through the slower stuff, de Grassi still more than enough power to slide the car around. And that, of course, is a little bit in front of him. Behind him, Karen Chondok and Antonio Pizzonia. Andy Soucek in 15th place behind Pizzonia. Here's de Grassi in 10th. And of course they're all squeezing up, hopefully towards the points positions. Flick of the fingers, changing down the gears. Look at the right hand, flicking up through the gearbox with the paddle shifters. And again, he comes onto the straight pretty much where he was the lap before. And so he's really being towed into contention down that front stretch. Sandy Negrão with the number 7 car, Bruno Senna, behind him. So that's a change since the pit stops. Negrão picked up a position by going in earlier, and Senna lost time relative to his fellow Brazilian by being in that queue of traffic and not being able to lap quite so quickly. Yep,
definitely. Negrão was down in 8th place and actually was being cut adrift of that group, so he's done well to get back up again with a good strategy.
You can see the ducking and diving going on here again, right behind the Dams car. Lucas de Grassi much better placed off the exit of the corner. This time he's got a really good run going. But again, just getting a little too deep under braking.
Yep, just overcooked it. I mean, this has always been my sort of criticism of Di Grassi. He tends to get involved in incidents like that. You know, he needs to keep his nose cleaner and just do a better job. Really, he just gets overexcited.
Bull Chinese.
He's unreliable. Yeah,
oh! Well, belying his experience, Nicolas Lapierre, who starts his 40th GP2 race, is out-braking himself there as Di Grassi comes up behind. And look, Adrian Zaug is just leaving them behind. Yep. He's just got his head into gear, concentrating, and this is something he was very good at last year. Most impressive is just shutting out what's going on around him and just really getting into the groove.
And he's the rookie of these three.
Yeah. Darty little move from Ammermuller, and again Ammermuller a couple of years ago in the 2-litre Formula Renaults, particularly really entertaining driver, stepped up to GP2 from a 2-litre Formula Renault car last year. Gareth, that's like in your day going from Vauxhall Opel 2-litre into Formula 3000. I mean, that's a big
it's
gulf.
An enormous jump. Oh, we've got a shunt.
We certainly have, and that's the
Negrão, is it? Yeah,
it is. It's the Minardi PK Sports car of Sandy Negrão.
Both ends of the car.
Yes, a not uncomprehensive effort. Yellow flags are out. Statistics coming off the teletyper just a moment. So let's just look back at where we are. Christian Bakkerud still leading this race, still refusing to go into the pit lane. Doesn't have to, of course. Vitaly Petrov in second. Luca Filippi, fastest man on the track in the second segment. Fastest second segment of the race for him. And he's in third ahead of Timo Glock. And a bit of a handful of opposite there for Lucas Di Grassi. And I see, is that Lapierre further in front of him now? Or is
I think he might have just done him, actually.
I think we just came back to the end of, yes, we did.
Yep.
That's Nicolas Lapierre behind with Borja Garcia and Michel Ammermuller all over the back of the Frenchman. So the Frenchman's retrograde progress is continuing, and this is how it happened. Another lockup from Zaug at the hairpin. That's one of the toughest braking areas on the circuit. Drivers come flying downhill at around 150 miles an hour into that heavy braking area. It's a curved braking zone as well, down into the hairpin, and so easy to get it wrong. And look at the very different line Di Grassi is using much less of the road than Zaug.
He's also quite a lot more aggressive, isn't he? He's very hard on the steering, very hard on the brakes. Locked at the rears a couple of times.
It's interesting, isn't it? There can be two such different lines. He's at least a car length different in most corners.
Got a good exit here. Nope.
Maybe he's just searching for a touch of grip at those sort of speeds. There's quite a lot of mid-speed corners here in Bahrain. And still, Christian Bakkerud staying out front.
You see the slipstream working here. We're getting pulled in really well.
Now Zaug just can't defend that, can he? He's coming on a piece of elastic,
and a long way.
Nothing Zaug can do will slow the car behind him.
Yep, he's overcooked it.
Yep. Well, fair enough.
It's good defensive driving. That's what he forced him into that, really.
Absolutely, very good indeed. Yes, he line and length stuck to his guns and forced Di Grassi to try the outside move, but he hasn't done enough to shake Di Grassi off. And Di Grassi's not the only one either. Nicolas Lapierre is closing in from behind. He's got Garcia, he's got Ammermuller, he's got Karen Chundok not too far behind as well. There's Borja Garcia, who's currently in 9th place. So this is all about the points here. Bakkerud still leads. And I don't know how much of an advantage he thinks he's going to be able to wrest before he heads into the pits. He's got about another 12 laps of running, and at the moment he is, well, the last lap he was in the 46.7s as opposed to the 44.7s where he has been. Replay there of Di Grassi running very wide under braking.
It just doesn't show somebody who's thinking about the job. You know, he knows he's carrying more speed than normal. He knows he's online. He's got more grip than Zaug. He's got to do better than that. I'm sorry, that's just not good enough.
Well, there was lots more room than he used. Yeah. He went in, he just stayed on too late, too deep, as we saw before. And he certainly didn't capitalise on the position. He gave himself the perfect position out the final two corners, and then just tossed it into the weeds.
You can go around the outside of that turn because the next turn's a left-hander. You'll have the inside line for the next turn.
He just needed to actually be on the track.
Yeah.
Next lap, let's see. Here we go. Now, he's not quite as close, but again, he will get sucked up by the car in front.
Zaug move across, make him go the long way around.
He can't go by the pit wall because Zaug has made sure there's not quite a car's width there. And again, Zaug defends. So turning the other way, it's not quite Raikkonen and Schumacher in Brazil last year, is it? Schumacher would have been between Zaug and the pit wall there, but very similar sort of situation, coming up behind with a big head of steam, and again not being able to make the best of it here. Zaug's line very compromised. Well, has he got him?
Oh, yes.
Catchphrase, done him. Yes, there he is. He's done him. He has, and he made it work.
Yeah.
He made it work.
Yeah, that's where he did Lapierre, same place.
Yeah.
His favourite passing spot. Yeah, good move.
It is the number one. Well, I suppose number one passing zone is the end of the front straight, isn't it? But is actually quite hard, because that's again downhill and a bit dirty quite often.
No, he did. I mean,
oil there as well now.
He just bludgeoned Zaug into an error there, didn't he? It was relentless corner after corner, so it had to happen. It had
to happen. He's going quicker than Zaug. He is just quicker than Zaug.
Zaug did a great job to defend as much as he could, but
no question. And keeping himself in the points as well still, so there's a queue lining up to try and snaffle some away from him, led by Lapierre, the red and white car, then the blue and yellow, what we now I guess are used to as Durango colours. Luca Filippi there, still in second place, but this will all shuffle up, I think, because Christian Bakkerud, although he's 8 seconds ahead, isn't going to stay as our race leader, is he? So he's gone into the pits now. Our timing screen is a lap behind, I'm afraid. So Filippi leads, Glock second, Zuber third, as they were before. Bruno Senna back up to fourth. Of course, he had been passed by Sandy Negrão, but Negrão has since, I think, as Gareth said, probably had a big mechanical failure somewhere and gone off. So De Grassi now 6th, Zaug 7th, Lapierre 8th, Garcia 9th.
Hirate
fastest lap of the race. So a point for him, at least, if not a successful race. He's last, having stalled on the grid and had to start from the pit lane, but he should get a fastest lap point.
He's another rookie who's doing a great job. What's this a shot of? Is his De Grassi and Zaug again?
Yeah. That's the reverse angle, or the outside view of it. That's where Zaug just can't quite hold it up to the apex. And De Grassi just sits there until eventually a corner run from the young South African driver indeed. Most impressed with him last year. Very calm, nonchalant. He looks like he's not a racing driver, more of a surfer, as that you kind of expect drivers younger and younger in my day to look like. But just seems to be able to just tune out and get on with it no matter what's going on around him. And that, of course, in the modern era is so vital, because there are so many distractions, even at this level. Now Senna just 5 seconds behind Andreas Zuber, so really not looking as if he's in a position to bridge that gap.
No, it's settled down, isn't it? We've got a 3.5 second gap from first to second, 3 seconds second to third, 5 seconds third to fourth, and then 6-7 seconds from fourth to fifth, so it's a bit spread out.
And then 1 second from sixth to ninth.
Yeah, there's a big cluster, yeah.
There is a big bunch. That's where all the excitement is going to come from, no question. And Zaug is at the head of it at the moment. Lapierre is, look at that. That is the classic overtaking manoeuvre from a queue. Amel Muller getting a bit bored there behind Borja Garcia. Thinks, right, well, I'll have a go there. Borja Garcia is watching what's going on in front, as Lapierre, as is his tradition now, can't make a passing manoeuvre. Lapierre can't get by. Of course, raced last year for Arden and couldn't pass in one of their cars, and apparently can't pass one of them either. Having a bit of a struggle there. There's Borja Garcia. Garcia seems to be a little bit stuck as well, and he needs to really pay attention, because Amel Muller is definitely the man looking for a pass. And behind them, of course, is the other Durango car of Antonio Pizzonia. So Andy Suchek, Sakon Yamamoto, Sergio Jimenez, Nakajima, Petrov, Bakkerud finally shuffling back into the pack behind Petrov in 17th place, so that really didn't pay off for him. He even lost a place to Petrov during the stops, or by staying out, or whichever way it was.
So did he make the start, and Pizzoni's running down midfield?
I don't know, Panzer's probably on the beach by now.
That's not what he's paid for.
No, well, no, indeed not. So top 5 the same as they were on lap 1. We've got 11 laps after this to see if there's going to be any changes in the 5. Probably not, but there goes Pizzonia having a little look.
You see a cloud of brake dust as they brake for turn 1. This circuit is very, very hard on brakes, and that will be an issue later in the race, I'm sure. You know, those who've looked after their brakes and taken it a bit easier in the race will benefit. There's so many high-speed entries to very, very slow corners that it really gives them a hammering.
Karen Chundok is the penultimate car in this queue. You can see now that as Pizzoni had a little look, and that's Ammermuller, of course. Karen Chundok is the last car in this queue. He had a little look at Ammermuller. It just sort of dropped him back by about a second or so. Got himself offline, bogged down, wrong gear, and scrabbling a little bit for grip. One of the problems with this circuit, Gareth, of course, is if you do make a mistake and run off wide, then it takes another lap or so before your tyres are working properly again, because they're sandpaper, effectively.
Yeah, you can see offline just how dirty it is. Not just rubber, but also sand and all sorts. So, exactly, you pick up all the sand, just, big old slide. That was quite nice. Controlled four-wheel drift.
Absolutely. A little bit more of that, please. It's certainly not the ideal way for a radial racing tyre to work, though. They tend to like going straight ahead if they can.
Lock up on the front left from Philippi.
Well, he's not cruising, is he? Definitely.
No, he can't afford to, but he's still just eking away from Glock behind him. The gap's 3.4 seconds now. In fact, it's 4 seconds now, this latest lap. So
a bigger lock-up somewhere from Timo Glock then.
Yeah.
But Glock, during the pit stop shuffling, getting himself back ahead of teammate Andreas Zuber, so that's really what he wanted. Second position would be a great way for him to start the season. Whoops, and that was Ammermuller just outbraking himself at the first corner, I think. Not quite enough to give the place to Karen Chundok, but he certainly shot out past the camera.
That was an excellent lap, actually, that last lap from Philippi, 44.7. Both Glock and Zuber in the sort of mid-45, so it was a very, very good lap. Bought him some nice breathing space.
Two Brazilians closing up, Senna and De Grassi, both in the 44s, 44.9s, and the cars, the car directly in front of them, Zuber 6/10 slower on that lap alone. So Senna and De Grassi are closing, definitely. And Zuber and iSports podium might not be entirely as safe as they had thought. 4 seconds, it's a big gap for Senna to bridge. But if he can, be very entertaining last 2 or 3 laps.
Yeah, De Grassi must be kicking himself being stuck behind Zaug for so long. He was already 5.5, 6 seconds ahead of Zaug now. Yeah. Imagine what he could have done if he'd cleared him much sooner. Yeah, it has been the better part of a second a lap, although at the moment it was just a couple of tenths. That was 1.2 seconds on the last lap. So yeah, it's been very good progress from him. And still our leader, Luca Filippi, with a comfortable margin, 4 seconds, just a fraction over, 22 hundredths more added to the advantage that lap, and every fraction counts. Nice move. Well, Ho Pin Tung moving up into 16th place there. That's a great stuff. And of course, the man he's just passed, Kazuki Nakajima, son of Satoru Nakajima, Japan's best ever so far Formula 1 driver. And the man who's now a very successful team owner in his own right, running in the Formula Nippon and Japanese Super GT Series. And Vitaly Petrov puts another move in. I think it's a replay, isn't it? Yeah, it was, yeah. Yeah, Ho Pin Tung actually passes him again in the same place. Ho Pin Tung didn't sit in the car until the seat fitting this week, so to be running where he's running is actually very good. That's a look from Lapierre to contact. Oh. Zaug just shut the door and put Lapierre on the curb, and now Lapierre's on the defensive. And do you know what? That was a classic look from Lapierre. Too little, too late. It was. It sort of dithered, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah. It was Hockenheim, it was the Nürburgring, you know, it was how many times? Times without number we've seen now, I'm afraid. Can I come through, please? Yeah. Yeah, you just don't ask, you get on with it. Yeah. If it's that late that it's still under consideration, it's too late, isn't it? And unfortunately, that just didn't work. But he's got away from Garcia, and Garcia now under pressure from Ammermuller once more, and Ammermuller feeling the attention of Karen Chundok as well. It's a shame, actually, because this hasn't really... I thought by now Chundok might have made up a couple of places as there's a bit more scrabbling and sleeves rolled up, and unfortunately there's not quite enough of it, because Zuber's not having to defend too desperately to keep Lapierre behind him. Zaug isn't having to defend too desperately. Chundok's desperate to get by, though, isn't he? He's looking everywhere, high, low, anywhere. Here we go again. It just wasn't convincing at all, was it? Lapierre make the apex? Just about. Just about. tiny bit of contact, but that move was never going to be on with a sort of uncommitted effort like that.
Now that would have worked at a hairpin, but where Zaug had enough room to straighten up and just drive off, and he just about did, and also luckily the front wheel went into the middle of his side pod and didn't knock the steering and jar his thumbs or anything, so that was a fortunate touch for him. But again, here we go, again Lapierre does have a quicker car, certainly on the straight. He's being sucked up behind Zaug. Zaug not even having to think too much about defending there either. Again, no sign of a move from Lapierre. Now think back to what we saw with Di Grassi from the onboard. He was coming from a lot further back and just having a go. And maybe that's what Lapierre needs to do, is drop back a fraction and really get a good toe down the straight, so he's got more of a head of steam. I'm not sure if he's getting enough of an advantage.
I think you're probably right. I think you're probably right. Sometimes you have to do that. You have to see the bigger picture. And looking back to the Brazilians we were talking about, Senna and Di Grassi, both of them flying, both of them in the 44s. Philippe's the only other driver in the 44s at the front, with Glock and Zuber low 45s.
Yeah.
So they are reeling the two iSport cars in, Senna and Di Grassi.
Yeah, that...
not quick enough, I don't think, for the time left, maybe.
No, the last time we talked about it was a 4-second margin from Senna back to Zuber, or up to Zuber, but Zuber's obviously put in a couple of quick laps and opened it up.
Yeah.
It's 4.2, despite the fact that Senna is still lapping half a second quicker. But who knows? We've seen all sorts of stuff already this weekend, and the championship is famous for not being over any of the races until they're over. Now let's have a look here at Antonio Pizzonia, or from Antonio Pizzonia's viewpoint now. He's quietly kept beavering away, hasn't managed to get up to the group in front. He's 11 seconds behind Karen Chundok, but Andy Suchek behind him, Sakon Yamamoto, Sergio Jimenez, that's the queue. And Yamamoto, I think, another driver who has to produce the goods in Europe this year. Either that, or it's going to be back to Super GT or Formula Nissan if he's going to continue as a racing driver, because I'm not sure that he's going to get too many more chances. He raced in Formula Renault V6 a couple of years ago, and he's had enough time in Europe really to establish himself again. Lapierre.
Well, Zaug's got that covered, hasn't he? Lapierre does that every lap.
And again, only the same distance there every lap as well, and it never varies. And so I mean, Zaug's not no big dramatic moves over to the pit wall like we saw to keep Di Grassi behind him.
He clearly doesn't feel threatened, does he?
No. Not seriously. I don't think he feels that he's quick enough to get through.
As a driver, you know what the reputations and what the form is of the drivers around you, you know. And obviously it's his first year in GP2. He'll have done his homework. He knows who the hard racers are, and you do respond accordingly to the driver you're wheel to wheel with, no question. And I think with Di Grassi we saw that he was a lot more respectful of Di Grassi's aggression, and with Lapierre he's just not too concerned.
Well, their respective teams, of course, got plenty of pedigree. Arden won the Formula 3000 Championship 2003, 2004, and Dams 1990, and then 93 and 94.
It's a nice move.
That was a nice move, wasn't it?
That was Nakajima.
Yeah. No, that's not Nakajima.
No, it's not Nakajima.
From Pizzonia, that was Yamamoto going past Andy Suchek. So Sean the Statman, having already dropped an enormous one with the youngest ever Formula 1 podium, missing it by a total of 7 days. Will he ever live this one down? You wait till I phone Prince Albert and tell him. So Adrian Zaug still keeping this lot very much under wraps. I'd like to see, I would just like to see again the gap between third and fourth, because our screen is not really keeping quite up to date as we'd like, the timing screen, and just see how it's going. Looking back from Pizzonia, he's in 11th. And whoa, outbraked himself, missed a gear,
been done.
Gave it away. And in fact, that's not that one, that is Suchek that goes by, and Yamamoto goes by him as well. So in fact it was Suchek getting by Yamamoto we saw from behind, and then Pizzonia makes the mistake and gives the positions away. And again, you know, that's exactly the sort of thing that he must not be doing in this category. It's one thing to be in a team that may not be maybe as fast as some of the other cars, but when you outbrake yourself and let two drivers just go by on a free bus pass, then really you're just Not doing yourself any favours at all.
You see, just lost on the way in, you see.
Yeah.
Just lock the rears. Just got out of shape.
Easy to do, everyone's done it, but...
You expect better of someone of his experience, because, again, both the guys with him are GP2 rookies.
Never mind the expectations are better, he just can't afford for his future career to be doing that stuff. Absolutely not. So, yeah, Souček in front of Yamamoto. And Souček, Spanish Formula 3 champion 2 seasons ago. It was a long campaign for him, but he's still very young, just 21 years of age. And Yamamoto, well, he's a pretty young driver as well, just into his 20s as well. So these two guys looking to, well, not learn the ropes, but make a bit of a name for themselves this season. I wouldn't be at all surprised to hear from both of them. And there we go. Karen Chunduk finally dives inside Michael Ammermuller.
I see that Pizzoni was going backwards after those two passed him, so whether he's got a mechanical problem or whether he's just thrown the towel in.
Oh, and Souček leaves the door just ajar enough to invite a look from Yamamoto, but the Japanese doesn't squeeze through. Souček in the World Series Bahrain last year showed prodigious qualifying pace, but really just was a little bit out of luck in the races. Just won the once in Istanbul. He was 4th in the championship, a very consistent podium finisher. It'll be interesting to see just how he gets to grips with these cars, because as I said, they're not wildly different from a World Series car. So he's moving up a little bit in terms of power, grip, sophistication, but he should be able to deal with the cars pretty well. Checking his mirrors, just to try and see where Yamamoto has got to.
The important thing now, Martin, is the battle for pole position for tomorrow, which is whoever finishes 8th today gets pole tomorrow.
Well, that's why Karen Chunduk in the last couple of laps is making such efforts to get by Michael Ammermuller, to try and deny his own teammate, Borja Garcia. So you have no greater rival in any racing championship than your own teammate, do you? As Ferrari are consistently proving. And at the moment, it's the first of those two blue and yellow Durango cars that has the reverse 8 pole position. Nakajima, fastest lap of the race. Excellent.
Well, that came from?
Came from frustration, perhaps, of being stuck, or maybe from a monster toe behind Andy Souček down the straight. And of course, Nakajima was one of those who was in trouble at the aborted start. So that really kind of puts a bit of a kibosh on your race, but not necessarily on your ability to produce pace. In fact, Nakajima, of course, is behind Sergio Jimenez. It's Yamamoto that's behind Andy Souček, as we can quite plainly see right there. Chunduk in 9th then, Ammermuller still in 10th, and it is Borja Garcia. He had a couple of World Series 8th to poles, or in fact 6th to poles last year. He seemed to be quite adept at, if you can't get into the top 3 or 4. Let's look at the bigger picture. And another very experienced guy with a lot of karting background and quite a lot of racing at this sort of level, World Series and so far.
Yeah, it's a shame we didn't get to see anything of Mike Conway today. I was looking forward to seeing how he would go. Reigning British F3 champion and Macau winner. Well, maybe Sunday will be a slightly better day for him. Yeah, it's hard work, those starting from the back. Yeah, well, certainly is. Of course, he's been run in the British Series by Raikkonen Robertson Racing. Oops, and a second pit stop for Antonio
See the brake dust. The brake dust coming off. That gives you an idea of just how hard they're working.
Now, this is the effort to go for the point for fastest lap then, I assume.
Yeah, they're not new tyres, but they're fairly fresh.
They may well be the set that he had on the beginning of the race.
Yeah.
Because he was the very first pit caller, wasn't he, after 2 or 3 laps, I think, because of him being bounced up in the air and thought, right, forget it, let's go. And Souček, run by Intervetten last year in the World Series, and the sponsor that gives its name to that team keeps his association with the Spanish driver. Well, Ammermuller coming back on there, wasn't he?
Some damage on his left side pod, hasn't he?
Yes, he have. I just wondered for a moment whether we were seeing the start of
here we are.
A Keke Rosberg fastest lap by using lots of escape roads moment, but no, not at all. It was a lapse of judgment as he tried to make up the place on, or get back the place from Kazuki Nakajima.
Who was a lap down.
So it was to just lap him. So
yeah.
Possibly Nakajima not as alert as he'd hoped.
Yeah.
Well, Ammermuller from 10th place then. Now, has he been caught and passed? We'll have to wait and see. But there is the battle for the 8th position and pole in race 2. Zaug still keeping Ammermuller and the rest of the queue at bay. Lapierre rather than the rest of the queue at bay. Borja Garcia in 8th. As you can see here, Christian Bakkerud and Ho Pin Tung still fighting each other. Or is that Sutek and Yamamoto?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Two pairs of team cars racing. It's two DPR versus BCN battles. There you are. You see, I just plumped, didn't I? I should have looked for the helmet colour to give myself a bit more of a guess.
Just winding us up, I think.
Yeah, and the yellow on the top is Andy Suchek. So there we go. So this is the battle then for 11th, and the other DPR BCN battle is for 14th. Christian Bakkerud leading Ho Pin Tung. Well, that's some 11 seconds or so behind this one.
So at the front, we haven't seen the front for a while, but Glock now is 6 seconds behind Philippi, so Philippi's looking very comfortable.
Certainly is, isn't he?
Yeah.
Which Luca Philippi was racing last year then?
That's a good point.
But I mean, you know, is it change of team, maybe just a bit more maturity, maybe the combination of the two together?
Well, I've heard that he went into winter and really worked on his kind of mental approach to racing, and obviously it's...
Past Petrov. Yep. So the two DPR cars now nose to tail again, as they were much earlier in the race as a result of those two manoeuvres. But Bakkerud really flying. Not sure. That's not the race leader pulling off.
No, it's a racing engineering.
No, it is racing engineering. Yeah. There's Luca Filippi coming towards us, answering my own question. That looked very dark blue there for a moment, though. Out of the final corner then. Let's not get this wrong. Checkered flag out nice and early, so no mistakes there from the flag man. Victory in the opening race of 2007 for Luca Filippi and Supernova International. Big result for the Italian driver and a big result for the Norfolk team as well. Timo Glock second. Andreas Zuber avoids running into him for third place. Bruno Senna, very good start in fourth, ahead of Lucas Di Grassi fifth. Adrian Zaug on the final lap and give away pole position for tomorrow, Sunday morning's sprint race. There they go across the line. 9th place, Karen Chundok, and in 10th place, Michel Ammermuller.
Well, as GP2 goes, that's pretty emphatic, isn't it, from Filippi? 7-second win. 7.3 seconds.
Absolutely
8.1,
right.
I'm sorry, the monitor just refreshed. 8.1 seconds.
Well, again, his last lap, 1:45.1.
Yeah.
Last lap from Glock, 1:46.0. Timo really rolled off the throttle, didn't he?
Yeah. That's the first time iSport have ever had both cars on the podium, actually, so they'll be pretty pleased with that, although disappointed not to get the win.
Petrov just does not get back in front of Bakarud at the line. And Luca Filippi, well, he had a good opening race weekend in Imola last year. Not a great one, but a good one. But the bad news for him is that neither former GP2 title winner won the opening race in Bahrain. They were both second, and we therefore suggest that Timo Glock is going to win this year's championship on the basis of that flimsy evidence. But still, Luca Filippi, very strong race weekend. No mistakes so far. Pole to victory, and of course he will start race 2 in 8th position. Sunday's sprint. And Petrov making a mess of the final corner there. Well, this is the last couple of corners sort out. The BCN and DPR battles got very fraught towards the end. But no question at all, Luca Filippi is delighted with that. And Gareth, whatever he did to get his head around 2007 certainly worked really well.
Yeah, that's, as we said, very, very impressive. 8-second win in GP2 is pretty unusual, although it does mark the 5th race on the trot, I think, where we've had a lights to flag win. So hope GP2 isn't losing its racing edge.
No, let's hope not.
But I think other performances, Senna and Zaug stood out for me, both really impressive. You know, both rookies for the series, both really solid jobs.
Of course, Christian Bakarud did lead during the pit stops, but I take the point that apart from being shuffled around in the pit stops, Filippi was never passed by anybody else. He only gave away his position. Incidentally, the 2 race winners here of the first race in the previous years, Heikki Kovalainen in 2005, Nelson Piquet 2006, both went on to be Renault Formula 1 test drivers. And of course Kovalainen is racing, and Piquet, well, who knows what will happen during the season. But there's the unofficial result then after 33 laps. Should have been 34, but the aborted start meant that they had an extra formation lap and lost a lap of the race. And Luca Filippi will be enjoying this slowing down lap more than any other, that's for sure. Rolling back into Parc Fermé, and I think that we will probably see a very happy David Sears, the Supernova boss. Hasn't had an awful lot to celebrate over the last couple of years. Could this be the beginning of another dynasty, another renaissance for them, Gareth, do you think?
Yeah, so there's no reason why not, certainly. I mean, they were a great team going back 6-7 years ago. Back there again.
So, tomorrow, the sprint race with Garcia leading the reverse top 8 on pole. That should be entertaining.